The umpire had to beg for silence. But the Filipino crowd in Toronto simply couldn't contain themselves. And in the middle of the chaos, Eala did something that left everyone speechless. Thousands of Filipino fans packed the 10,077-seat Sobeys Stadium, waving Philippine flags and chanting, "Let's go, Alex," at the top of their lungs. The chair umpire repeatedly asked for quiet during points, but the passion was simply too overwhelming. When the match ended, the 21-year-old Filipina didn't scold her supporters. She celebrated them. Is the Filipino wave becoming the most powerful force in tennis? The chair umpire raised her hand. She called for silence. The crowd responded with something that wasn't silence. "Ligang lai! Ligang lahay!" The chants erupted from the stands at Sobeys Stadium, drowning out everything else. Thousands of Filipino fans, their voices unified, were singing a traditional Filipino cheer that had no place in the quiet, orderly world of professional tennis, and they didn't care. The umpire's request was repeated. Multiple times throughout the match, she asked the crowd to keep the noise down during points. But the passion was simply too overwhelming. For the tens of thousands of Filipino fans who had packed the 10,077-seat center court, this wasn't just a tennis match. It was a celebration of identity, a gathering of a community that had long been invisible in the world of tennis. The crowd had been waiting hours for this moment. Gates opened at 5 p.m. for the night session. In Toronto, early round matches are typically laid-back affairs. Not this time. The pathway between food kiosks and brand activations was filled with people wearing Philippine red, blue, and white. Philippine flags hung from railings like a World Cup match. One vendor had even swapped chicken teriyaki for Filipino chicken adobo, a nod to the community that had turned the Canadian Open into a homecoming. It's the first time I've ever heard. Halfway through the tournament, they ran out of food offering just because of a player, tournament director Carl Hale said, reflecting on the demand. The noise was a source of controversy. Some spectators, including fellow Filipinos, expressed frustration online. One fan called for signage inside the court, reminding spectators to just shut the faok up during a rally or a serve. The debate echoed what had happened at the Australian Open, where the umpire had to repeatedly admonish fans for making noise during rallies. Tennis etiquette is different from basketball or boxing. Silence during points is not optional. It's a fundamental part of the game. But the umpire's requests were largely ignored. The crowd cheered every Eala winner, every break of serve, every moment of brilliance. The chants were so loud that the in-arena introduction was nearly drowned out. For Alicia Parks, the American who had beaten Eala at the Australian Open, it must have felt like she had somehow walked into a match in Manila. When the match ended, Eala made the noise even louder. "Kamusta tayo ngayon, Toronto? I-wagayway niyo ngayong mga bandila niyo patting in," she shouted into the microphone, waving her arms to encourage the crowd. The fans responded with a deafening roar. The umpire's calls for silence were no match for the power of a community that had finally found its voice. The chaos was not a breakdown. It was a beginning. The phones at the National Bank Open ticket office started ringing the moment Eala's name appeared on the schedule, and within 30 minutes, every single seat was gone. "Our grandstand court is 2,800 seats," tournament director Carl Hale told the Tennis Channel. "We can't put her on there because she probably sold upwards of 5,000 tickets." The math was staggering. Eala had sold nearly twice as many tickets as the original venue could hold. The match was moved to center court at Sobeys Stadium, which holds 10,077 spectators. And the Wednesday night session sold out completely. A feat that, according to Tennis Connected, only Serena Williams had accomplished in Toronto over the last 20 years. The significance of that achievement cannot be overstated. The National Bank Open is one of the most prestigious tournaments on the WTA calendar outside the Grand Slams. Early round matches are typically low-key affairs, with fans avoiding weekday sessions and the summer heat at the uncovered Sobeys Stadium. For Eala to sell out a weekday crowd during the early stages of the tournament is a testament to her unprecedented popularity, a feat that even the Big Three couldn't accomplish. The sellout was driven by more than just curiosity. The Greater Toronto Area is home to one of the world's largest Filipino communities, with more than 300,000 individuals of Filipino descent. Jason Maglante, Tennis Canada's Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Services, projected that 8 out of every 10 fans in the stadium could be of Filipino heritage. "We're pretty proud of anything that comes out of our country in the Philippines," he said. "The only thing I know of with this kind of hype among Filipinos in the sports realm would be the boxer Manny Pacquiao." The tournament had been preparing for months. When the National Bank Open announced Eala would play in Toronto, Maglante's phone blew up with messages from friends and family. Organizers reached out to Toronto's Filipino community groups and the consulate to promote the tournament. They even added a special Filipino dish to the food offerings: chicken adobo, one of several ideas that came from a Filipino Canadian on Tennis Canada's tournament staff. "It's the first time I've ever heard of a tournament, halfway through the tournament, add a food offering just because of a player," Hale admitted. When the gates opened, the scenes were extraordinary. Fans arrived hours early. Some wore customized Eala shirts. Families attended their first ever professional tennis match just to see her. Philippine flags hung from railings like a World Cup match. One supporter even showed up wearing a dinosaur costume wrapped in the Philippine flag. The pathway between food kiosks was filled with people wearing Philippine red, blue, and white. "Let's go, Alex!" Chants shook the stadium. Signs screamed Eala and Mahal Kita. When Eala walked onto center court, the stadium erupted. The cheers were so deafening that the in-arena introduction was nearly drowned out. During every Eala winner, the crowd erupted. Chants of "Let's go, Alex!" echoed across the stadium. The chair umpire repeatedly asked for silence during points, but the passion was simply too overwhelming. Hale summed up the moment perfectly. The Filipino community, for months now, has been calling in, asking when does she play, who does she play, where does she play. They were so excited to have her, he said. "When we made the draw, we told them we'd announce her start time when it was confirmed. When we announced it, the phones rang, tickets sold, and boom, it was sold out Wednesday night. Just like that." What would you do if you had achieved something that even the big three couldn't? For Eala, the answer was simple. She would stay humble, stay focused, and step onto the court ready to prove that the sellout wasn't about her. It was about a community that finally sees itself on the world's biggest stages. Because she knew that the movement was just getting started. The chants were deafening, the flags were everywhere, and the chair umpire kept raising her hand, begging for silence. But the Filipino crowd in Toronto simply couldn't contain themselves. The tennis world was divided. "Ligang lai! Ligang lai!" The traditional Filipino cheer erupted from the stands at Sobeys Stadium, drowning out everything else. Thousands of fans, their voices unified, had no intention of following the quiet, orderly rules of professional tennis. The umpire's repeated requests for silence during points fell on deaf ears. The noise was a source of controversy. Some spectators, including fellow Filipinos, expressed frustration online. One fan called for signage inside the court reminding spectators to just shut the feck up during a rally or a serve. The debate echoed what had happened at the Australian Open, where the umpire had to repeatedly admonish fans for making noise during rallies. Tennis etiquette is different from basketball or boxing. Silence during points is not optional. It's a fundamental part of the game. But the passion came from a place of love. Coach and tennis analyst Carl Santamaria, who previously worked with Eala's first coach and grandfather, understands the Filipinos' passion for sports, but hopes fans will also learn to stay quiet during play and applaud respectfully after points. "The Filipino crowd is loud. I could understand that. But Filipino tennis fans are still in their infancy, I would say," Santamaria told the Inquirer. "Tennis is not like basketball or boxing or soccer, where you can scream anytime you want. There is tennis etiquette. You need to understand the flow of the game, when you can cheer, when you can make a sound, and when you should not." Santamaria explained the challenge facing the fans. "As a tennis coach, I understand that if you're a player, it's really distracting if you hear sounds in the middle of the rally. Your concentration should be on the ball and the shot. Any little sound that fans think won't matter, the players will hear it because it's quiet during rallies. He added that the fans, in their eagerness to cheer, were waiting for the sound to die down so they could cheer together. But that was often the exact moment Eala was serving. There were many points where it worked the other way. I think Alex was the one distracted. But Santamaria also placed blame on tournament organizers. There are shortcomings of the Filipino crowd, but there are also shortcomings of the organizers, he said. I know the courts, I know the layout, I know that it will not fit the fans that Alex was going to receive that day. He noted that at the Australian Open, organizers should have seen the demand coming when Eala's practices were mobbed days before her match. Toronto organizers had learned that lesson, but still couldn't keep up. When Eala's name appeared on the schedule, tickets vanished in 30 minutes. Tournament director Carl Hale admitted, "A sold-out Wednesday night this early in the tournament is really unheard of." The grandstand court with its 2,800 seats simply couldn't hold the crowd of 10,000 plus that showed up. The Eala Mania phenomenon has created a new challenge for the sport. Filipino fans are discovering tennis for the first time. Many attending Eala's matches in Toronto had never been to a professional tennis tournament before. They're learning the rules, the etiquette, and the traditions. All while bringing the passionate, loud, community-driven energy of Filipino sports culture to a sport that has traditionally valued silence and order. What would you do if a new generation of fans was discovering your sport and bringing an entirely different energy with them? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would celebrate them. She would thank them. And she would keep fighting to give them the moments they came for. Because she knew that the chaos wasn't a breakdown. It was the beginning of something beautiful. Halle. The final point had been played, the victory was secured. But for Alex Eala, the real celebration was just beginning, and it started with words that would echo across the Filipino diaspora. Kamusta tayong ngayon, Toronto? I-wagayway niyo ngayong mga bandila niyo patting in. The 21-year-old Filipina sensation had just survived a grueling 3-set battle against American Alicia Parks, avenging her Australian Open loss from January. But instead of talking about her tennis, she turned to the crowd. The thousands of Filipino fans who had packed the 10,077-seat Sobeys Stadium and spoke to them in their own language. Okay, wait, I don't know if they understood that. But there are so many Filipinos in the crowd, so many flags. Thank you, she said, switching to English with a laugh. The response was deafening. Philippine flags filled the venue as supporters erupted in thunderous cheers, transforming the Canadian arena into a sea of red, blue, white, and yellow. For a few emotional moments, Toronto felt like home. Eala's gratitude was genuine and overwhelming. I am eternally grateful. I mean, I just came off Washington, so I really feel like this is a celebration, she said. She had arrived in Toronto just days after capturing her first WTA Tour title at the DC Open, where she had defeated Olympic gold medalists, Grand Slam champions, and the world number 3. The victory had propelled her to a career-high world number 20 ranking. But she wasn't talking about the trophy. She was talking about the people who had followed her around the world. Then came the words that struck at the heart of every Filipino watching. Alam niyo kababayan, linggo-linggo ko kayo nakikita, sinusuportahan ako, linggo-linggo ko nakikita kung gaano niyo kamahal ang kapwa niyong Pinoy, kaya proud na proud ako maging Pinoy. Maraming salamat, mga kababayan. Mahal ko kayong lahat. Translated, countrymen, week after week I see you supporting me. Week after week I see how much you love your fellow Filipinos. That's why I'm so proud to be Filipino. Thank you, my countrymen. I love you all. The crowd exploded once again. It was more than a victory speech. It was a celebration of a nation whose people continue to rally behind one of their own, wherever in the world she may be competing. The fans had been waiting for this moment. For months, the Filipino community in Toronto had been calling tournament organizers, asking when Eala would play. They had bought out tickets in 30 minutes, forcing a move to center court. They had shown up in numbers that even the most experienced tournament directors had never seen. Warren Paul Katakutan, a Filipino from Toronto, designed custom white t-shirts for his friends featuring Eala and the words "Rise, Believe, Inspire." Many Filipino fans attending the match hadn't been to a tennis tournament before. They were discovering the sport because of her. Eala's message to them was simple: "I see you, and I'm proud of you." It was a powerful reminder of what her success really means. Every Philippine flag raised in Toronto carried the same message. Eala is never alone on the court. She carries millions of Filipinos with her. "I am eternally grateful," she repeated, her voice carrying the weight of everything she had achieved. What would you do if an entire community of 250,000 people showed up to support you? For Eala, the answer was simple. She would give them everything she had. She would speak to them in their own language, and she would remind them that their love was the reason she kept fighting. Because she knew that the chaos wasn't a breakdown. It was a beginning. A beginning of a movement that was taking over the tennis world.